Okay, let's go.
Everlasting love, this will be the one I've waited for.
They were 360 pounds of pure muscle and fury, locked behind steel bars. But when the intruder broke in at 3 a.m., these giants didn't bite. They did something far more terrifying. The air in the Hiles shelter was thick with the scent of desperation, but one sound cut through the chaos like a serrated blade, a deep, guttural mourning that rattled the very foundation of the building. Mark and Elena, longtime benefactors of the facility, froze in their tracks. There, in a reinforced enclosure designed for monsters, sat two of the most magnificent creatures they had ever seen. A pair of Tibetan Mastiffs, each weighing a staggering 180 pounds. Their fur was a thick, midnight of black mane, and their paws were the size of dinner plates. The shelter workers sighed, explaining that they had been rescued from a brutal underground breeding operation. "They are literally soulmates," he whispered. "We tried to separate them once to save space, but they tore at the walls and shrieked with a grief so raw it kept the entire city awake. We had to put them back together." Mark watched them, Titan, the male, leaning his massive head against Nova, the female, and let out a sharp laugh. "They're like a pair of rebellious high school sweethearts," he joked, his voice echoing through the hall as Elena joined in his laughter. But as they drove home, the silence of their empty house felt heavier than usual. Their daughter, Lily, was thousands of miles away studying abroad, leaving behind a void that no amount of charity work could fill. Mark couldn't shake the image of those two giants. "They were just like us, Elena," he kept saying, his eyes reflecting a newfound obsession. "They refuse to be apart. They love with a ferocity that the world doesn't understand." Elena lay awake all night. The image of those two lonely titans burned into her mind. When the sun finally touched the horizon and Mark started to mention them again over coffee, she simply smiled. "If you want them, Mark, let's go get them." Mark's eyes ignited with a light she hadn't seen in years. If you're watching this and haven't subscribed yet, I have to say I'm a little heartbroken. Stories like this need your support. Hit that subscribe button right now, you won't regret it. Now, back to what happened next. Despite the shelter's warnings about their sheer size and power, Mark's determination was an immovable force. The paperwork was signed with trembling hands, and as the heavy kennel doors opened, the atmosphere shifted. Titan and Nova didn't run. They marched into their new life like royalty entering a long-lost kingdom. When Titan and Nova first crossed the threshold of the family home, it was like two tectonic plates shifting. The floorboards groaned under their 360-pound combined weight, and their massive tails wagged with such rhythmic force that the wind from their movement nearly knocked over the hallway vases. They weren't just dogs, they were living fortresses. For the first few days, Mark and Elena watched in awe as the giants navigated the house with a surprising, gentle grace. They claimed the living room rug as their own, lying side by side like two fallen oak trees. Elena looked at Mark, her eyes misting over with joy as she watched Titan rest his enormous chin on Nova's back. "Mark," she laughed softly, "look at them. There aren't just two people here anymore. There are two families living under this roof now." The house, once a silent museum of Lily's childhood, was now alive with the sound of deep breathing and the rhythmic thud of heavy paws. But then, a week later, the peace was shattered in the dead of night. It was 2:47 a.m. when the heavy oak front door clicked open. Mark's heart hammered against his ribs like a trapped bird. Elena gasped, clutching the sheets as the sound of footsteps echoed from the foyer. They scrambled out of bed, adrenaline flooding their veins, and rushed to the top of the stairs, expecting the worst. They prepared to see a thief, a monster, or a ghost, but what they saw below left them completely paralyzed.
The foyer was a scene of absolute silent dominance. A figure was pinned flat against the floor, buried under a mountain of black fur. Titan and Nova hadn't barked, they hadn't bitten, they had simply used their massive frames to collapse the intruder like a house of cards. Titan was lying directly across the person's chest, his 180-pound weight acting as a living straitjacket, while Nova stood guard over the person's head, her low, primal growl vibrating through the floorboards. It was a masterclass in silent protection, a wall of muscle that no human could hope to move.
The silence was broken by a muffled, strained voice from beneath the fur. "Okay, this was definitely not the welcome I planned," the voice wheezed. Mark and Elena froze as a pale hand emerged from under Titan's massive belly and waved weakly at them. It was Lily. Their daughter had flown across the ocean to surprise them, only to be tackled by two living shadows the moment she stepped inside. "Lily!" Elena shrieked, half laughing and half crying as she rushed down the stairs. It took Mark's help to signal the dogs to stand down. Titan and Nova peeled themselves off the floor with a look of slight confusion, their tails giving a single cautious wag. Lily sat up, gasping for air and clutching her ribs. "What are these things?" she laughed, her voice cracking with exhaustion. "I think they actually broke my sternum. Talk about a security system." She reached out, her tiny hands disappearing into Titan's thick mane, and to everyone's surprise, the giant leaned in, licking her face with a tongue the size of a towel. The tension evaporated, replaced by a wave of hysterical laughter that filled the home. Mark looked at his daughter, then at the two massive dogs now leaning against her for affection. He leaned back against the wall, a mischievous glint in his eye. "Well, Lily," he chuckled, wiping a tear of laughter from his eye, "in this house everyone has a partner and a soulmate. It looks like you're the only one here who's officially single, so you better behave yourself." Lily let out a dramatic, "Oh my God!" and collapsed back onto the floor, pulling both 180-pound giants into a massive, furry hug. "You two are the most incredible couple I've ever met," she whispered into their ears. The house was no longer empty. It was a sanctuary for two families, bound by a love that was as massive as the dogs themselves. Titan and Nova had found their forever pack, and the empty rooms were finally full of life. If this story touched your heart and you're still not subscribed, please don't wait any longer. Hit that subscribe button. Have you ever seen a dog protect its family like this? Share your story in the comments. If this story moved you, please hit that like button. It helps more people find these incredible stories.